Jake Martinez sat in his small office in downtown Los Angeles, staring at the pile of unpaid bills on his desk. His music production company was failing, and he knew it. The walls were covered with old pictures of famous singers he had worked with years ago, but those days seemed like a distant memory now. His phone had not rung with a new client call in 3 weeks. He rubbed his tired eyes and opened his laptop. Maybe he could find some inspiration online, or better yet, discover a new talent that could save his business. Jake had always been good at spotting talent before anyone else did. That skill had made him successful once, and he hoped it could do so again. As he scrolled through social media, a video caught his attention. The thumbnail showed a young woman with long brown hair holding a violin on a busy street. The title read, "Amazing Violin Cover of Get Lucky by Daft Punk." Jake almost scrolled past it, but something made him stop. Maybe it was the way the girl held her violin, or the confident look in her eyes. He clicked play. The first few notes made him sit up straight. The girl was playing the famous electronic song on her violin, but she had transformed it into something completely different. Her bow moved across the strings with perfect control, creating sounds that Jake had never heard before. She made the violin sing, cry, and dance all at the same time. The electronic beats of the original song seemed to flow through her instrument. Naturally, people on the street had stopped to listen. Some were recording with their phones. Others were dropping money into her violin case. But the girl seemed lost in her own world, eyes closed, feeling every note she played. Her performance was not just music, it was pure emotion. Jake watched the video 3 times in a row. Each time, he noticed something new. The way she moved with the music, how she connected with the people watching, the unique sound she created. This was not just another street performer. This was someone special. He checked the video details. It had been posted only 2 days ago, but it already had over 2 million views. The comments were flooding in from all over the world. People were calling it amazing, beautiful, and life-changing. But there was no information about who she was or where she could be found. Jake started searching for more. Videos of the same girl. He found 3 more on different channels, all filmed on the same street in Seattle. In each video, she played different songs, but with the same incredible skill. One showed her playing a classical piece that made grown men cry. Another captured her performing a modern pop song that had everyone dancing. His excitement grew with each video he watched. This girl had something that could not be taught or faked. She had raw talent, the kind that comes along once in a lifetime. Jake had seen many musicians in his 20 years in the business, but none had moved him the way this unknown street performer did. He picked up his phone and called his assistant, Alex Thompson. Alex had been with him for 5 years, through the good times and the bad. If anyone would understand his excitement, it would be Alex. "Alex, you need to see this," Jake said as soon as Alex answered. "What is it now, Jake? Please tell me you did not find another wannabe singer who thinks they are the next big thing. This is different. I am sending you a link right now. Watch it and call me back." Jake sent the video link and waited. He knew Alex would be just as amazed as he was. While he waited, he watched the video again, this time paying attention to the background. He could see street signs and store names that would help him figure out exactly where. In Seattle, this was filmed. His phone rang 5 minutes later. "Jake, who is this girl?" Alex's voice was full of excitement. "I have no idea, but I am going. To find out, pack your bags, Alex. We are going to Seattle." "Are you serious? We can barely afford to keep the office open, and you want to fly to Seattle to chase after a street performer." Jake understood Alex's concern. Money was tight, and this trip would cost them a lot. But sometimes in business, you had to take risks. Jake felt in his heart that this girl could save his company. "Alex, trust me on this one. I've not felt this excited about a musician in years. This girl has something special. If we can sign her, if we can work with her, we could turn everything around." There was silence on the other end of the line. Jake knew Alex was thinking about all the times Jake had been wrong before, all the musicians who had not worked out, all the money they had lost on bad decisions. "Okay," Alex finally said. "But this better work, Jake. We cannot afford another mistake." Jake smiled for the first time in weeks. It will work. I can feel it. Spent the rest of the day making plans. He booked flights to Seattle, reserved a hotel room, and printed out maps of the area where the videos were filmed. He also did more research online, trying to find any information about the mysterious violin player. The more he searched, the more frustrated he became. There was no name, no social media profile, no contact information. It was as if she had appeared out of nowhere, played these incredible performances, and then vanished again. But Jake was determined. He had built his career on finding talent that others had missed. This girl was out there somewhere, probably still playing on the streets of Seattle, not knowing that millions of people around the world had fallen in love with her music. As the sun set over Los Angeles, Jake sat in his office one more time, watching the violin video. Tomorrow, he would begin the most important search of his career. He had to find this girl. His future depended on it. Jake and Alex landed in Seattle on a gray Tuesday morning. The city was covered in its usual blanket of clouds, and a light rain was falling. Jake had never been to Seattle before, but he had studied maps of the downtown area for hours on the plane. He knew exactly where he wanted to start looking. They took a taxi from the airport to their hotel near Pike Place Market. Jake had chosen this location because 2 of the violin videos were filmed within a few blocks of the famous market. If the girl was a regular street performer, she would probably return to the same spots where she had success before. After checking into their hotel, Jake and Alex walked the streets with printed screenshots from the videos. They showed the pictures. 2 other street performers, shop owners, and anyone who would listen. Most people shook their heads and said they had never seen the girl before. Maybe she does not perform here regularly, Alex suggested, after their 3rd hour of searching. She could have been just visiting Seattle when those videos were made. Jake refused to give up. Now look at how comfortable she was in those videos. She knew exactly where to stand, how to work with the crowd. This is her regular spot, I am sure of it. They spent the entire first day walking through downtown Seattle. They checked every street corner, every park, and every place where a musician might set up to perform. Jake talked to dozens of people, but no one had seen the mysterious violin player. That evening, they sat in a small coffee shop near their hotel. Alex was tired and frustrated. Jake, maybe we should try a different approach. We could post something online asking people to help us find her. Jake thought about this idea. It might scare her away. If she wanted to be found, she would have put her contact information in those videos. She might be keeping her identity secret for a reason. The next morning brought more rain, but Jake was not discouraged. He had a new plan. Instead of just walking around randomly, he decided to focus on the exact locations from the videos. He had studied the backgrounds carefully and identified 3 specific spots. The first location was outside a popular bookstore on First Avenue. Jake and Alex arrived there at 10 in the morning and waited. They watched other street performers come and go, but there was no sign of the violin girl. She might perform at different times, Jake said. Let us try the second location. The second spot was near a busy bus stop downtown. They waited there for 2 hours, but again, no luck. Jake was starting to worry. What if the girl had stopped performing? What if she had left Seattle? As they walked to the third location, Alex tried to stay positive. Maybe she only performs on weekends. Today is Wednesday. She could have a regular job during the week. The third location was outside a small music store called Melody Corner. Jake recognized it immediately from one of the videos. This was where the girl had played the classical piece that made people cry. They waited outside the music store for an hour. Jake was about to suggest they try somewhere else when the store owner came outside. Are you 2 waiting for someone? The man asked. He was in his 60s, with gray hair and kind eyes. Jake showed him the screenshot from the video. We are looking for this girl. She plays violin on the street. Have you seen her? The man's face lit up. Oh, you mean Katie? Yes, she performs here sometimes. Beautiful player, that one. But I have not seen her in a few days. Jake's heart jumped. Finally, someone who knew her. Katie, do you know her last name? How can we contact her? The store owner looked suspicious. Why are you looking for her? Are you police or something? Alex quickly explained. We are music producers from Los Angeles. We saw her videos online and want to offer her a recording contract. The man laughed. You and about 50 other people. Katie has had all kinds of folks looking for her since those videos went viral. Reporters, agents, record companies. She does not want to be bothered. Jake felt disappointed, but also hopeful. At least now he knew her name was Katie, and she was still in Seattle. Do you know when she might be back here? She does not have a regular schedule. Sometimes she is here in the morning, sometimes in the evening, sometimes she does not come for days. She is a college student, you know. She has classes and other things to do. This was valuable information. Katie was a college student, which meant she was probably at the University of Washington. Jake thanked the store owner, and he and Alex walked away to discuss their next move. We could try the university, Alex suggested, but there are thousands of students there. How would we find one person? Jake had another idea. Let us come back here every day at different times. If she performs here regularly, we will eventually see her. For the next 3 days, Jake and Alex took turns watching the 3 locations. Where Katie had been filmed, they arrived early in the morning and stayed until late at night. They saw many street performers, but none of them was Katie. On Friday evening, Jake was getting discouraged. They had been in Seattle for almost a week, and they were no closer to finding Katie than when they arrived. Their hotel bills were adding up, and Alex was starting to talk about going home. Maybe this was a mistake, Alex said as they sat in their hotel room. Maybe we should accept that some people do not want to be found. Jake stared out the window at the Seattle skyline. He had never given up on anything this important before, but he was running out of ideas and money. Maybe Alex was right. Maybe. It was time to go home. Just then, his phone buzzed with a notification. Someone had tagged him in a comment on the original Violin video. The comment read, "If you were looking for this girl, she was playing outside Pike Place Market this afternoon." Jake jumped up from his chair. "Alex, get your jacket. We're going to Pike Place Market right now." He rushed out of the hotel and practically ran to the market. It was almost 9 o'clock at night, and most of the street performers had already gone home, but Jake was not giving up. If Katie had been there that afternoon, maybe she would be there tomorrow. As they walked around the market area, Jake noticed something. There was a violin case sitting empty next to a bench, as if someone had just packed up and left. His heart raced. This could be a sign that Katie had been there recently. Tomorrow would be Saturday. Katie was going to perform anywhere. It would probably be on the weekend when more people were around. Jake made a decision. He and Alex would spend the entire weekend at Pike Place Market, waiting for Katie to appear. Saturday morning arrived with the heaviest rain Seattle had seen all week. Jake woke up early and looked out his hotel window at the gray sky. The weather was not good for street performing, but he was not going to let that stop him. He had waited too long to find Katie to give up now. Alex was still sleeping when Jake got dressed and prepared to leave. He decided to let his friend rest and go to Pike Place Market alone. He grabbed his umbrella and headed out into the wet Seattle morning. The market was quieter than usual because of the rain. Most tourists were staying indoors, and the few people who were out walked quickly with their heads down. Jake found a covered area where he could wait and watch for Katie without getting completely soaked. He waited for 2 hours. Street performers came and went, but none of them was the girl he was looking for. Jake was starting to think that no one would perform in this weather when he heard something that made his heart stop. The sound of a violin. Jake looked around frantically, trying to figure out where the music was coming from. Then he saw her. Katie was standing under a large umbrella, about 50 feet away, playing her violin despite the rain. She had set up her violin case on the ground, and a few brave people had stopped to listen. Jake could not believe his eyes. After a week of searching, there she was, playing the same beautiful music that had captured his attention back in Los Angeles. She looked exactly like she did in the videos, but seeing her in person was even more amazing. He wanted to run over to her immediately, but something held him back. He watched as she played, studying the way she moved, the way she connected with her small audience. Even in the rain, with only a handful of people listening, She played with the same passion and energy as if she were performing for thousands. When Katie finished her song, the few people who had been listening clapped and dropped money into her violin case. Jake saw this as his chance. He walked over slowly, not wanting to startle her. "Excuse me?" he said politely. "Are you Katie?" Katie looked up from packing her violin. She seemed surprised that a stranger knew her name. "Yes, I am." "Do I know you?" Pulled out his phone and showed her the video of her performance. "I am Jake Martinez. I am a music producer from Los Angeles. I saw your video online, and I have been looking for you all week." Katie's face changed. She looked tired and a little annoyed. "Oh, you are another one of those guys. Look, I have already told everyone else I am not interested in recording contracts or becoming famous. I just play music because I love it." Jake was surprised by her reaction. "Wait, please do not leave. I am not like the others. I really believe in your talent," Katie continued, packing her violin. "That is what they all say. Last week, 3 different people told me they could make me rich and famous, but all they wanted was to use my music to make money for themselves." Jake realized that Katie had been approached by many people since her videos went viral, and most of them had probably not been honest with her. He needed to prove that he was different. "I understand why you would not trust me," Jake said. "I have been a music producer for 20 years and I have never met anyone with your talent. I flew all the way from Los Angeles just to find you." Katie stopped packing and looked at him more carefully. "You flew here just to find me? Why would you do that?" Jake could see that she was curious, even if she was still suspicious. "Because your music moved me in a way that nothing has in years. When I watched your video, I knew I had to meet you. I knew I had to work with you." Katie sat down on the bench next to her violin case. The rain was still falling, but she seemed less eager to leave. "What exactly do you want from me?" Jake sat down beside her, keeping a respectful distance. "I want to help you share your music with the world, but not in the way you think. I do not want to change who you are or make you into something you are not. I want to help you be the best version of yourself." Katie looked at him skeptically. "That sounds nice, but what does it really mean?" Jake thought carefully about his answer. He knew this was his only chance to convince her. "It means working together to create music that combines your classical training with modern sounds. It means recording in a real studio with professional equipment. It means reaching people all over the world who need to hear your music." Katie was quiet for a long moment. Jake could see that she was thinking seriously about what he had said. "I have heard promises like this before. How do I know you are telling the truth?" Jake understood her doubt. "You do not know me, so you have no reason to trust me yet. But I can prove to you that I am serious. I have a small studio back in Los Angeles. Come visit for a few days. No commitments, no contracts. Just try working with me and see what happens." Katie shook her head. "I cannot just leave Seattle. But I have school, and I have responsibilities here." Jake was curious about her responsibilities, but he did not want to be too personal. "What are you studying in school?" "Music therapy," Katie said. "I want to help people heal through music. That is why I play on the streets. Music should be for everyone, not just for people who can afford concert tickets." Jake was impressed. Katie was not just a talented musician. She was someone who cared about using her gift to help others. This made him want to work with her even more. "That is beautiful," Jake said honestly. "What if we could do both? What if we could create music that reaches millions of people and also helps them heal?" Katie looked at him with new interest. "What do you mean?" Jake was getting excited. "Imagine if your music could help people all over the world deal with stress, sadness, or pain. Imagine if we could create something that not only sounds beautiful but actually makes people feel better." Katie was quiet again, but Jake could see that his words had affected her. She was thinking about the possibilities. "I need time to think about this," Katie finally said. "This is a big decision," Jake nodded. "Of course, take all the time you need. But please, let me give you my contact information. When you are ready to talk, call me." Katie took his business card and put it in her pocket. "I will think about it," she said. As she walked away with her violin case, Jake felt hopeful for the first time all week. He had found Katie, and he had talked to her. Now he just had to wait and hoped that she would give him a chance to prove himself. 3 weeks passed before Katie called Jake. He had returned to Los Angeles and tried to focus on his other work, but he could not stop thinking about the talented violin player from Seattle. When his phone finally rang and he saw a Seattle number, his heart jumped. "Hello, Jake. This is Katie Williams. You met at Pike Place Market." Jake almost dropped his phone. "Katie.
I was hoping, Katie.
I was hoping you would call. I have been thinking about what you said." Katie's voice was careful but curious. "About working together and reaching people with music? I talked to my music teacher and some friends, and they think I should at least visit your studio." Jake felt excitement building in his chest. "That is wonderful news. When can you come?" "I have spring break next week. I could fly down for a few days, but I want to make something clear. It's just a visit. I am not making any promises." Jake understood, of course. "No pressure at all. I just want to show you what we could create together." A week later, Katie arrived at Los Angeles International Airport. Jake picked her up himself, wanting to make sure she felt comfortable from the moment she arrived. As they drove through the busy streets of Los Angeles, Katie looked out the window with wide eyes. "I've never been to Los Angeles before," she said. "It is so different from Seattle." Jake's studio was in a quiet part of Hollywood, away from the tourist areas. It was not the biggest or fanciest studio in the city, but it had good equipment and a warm, creative atmosphere. When they walked inside, Katie looked around with interest. "This is smaller than I expected," she said. Jake laughed. "Most people think recording studios are huge, but the best music often comes from intimate spaces like this." He introduced Katie to Alex, who had set up the studio for their session. Alex had been just as excited as Jake about Katie's visit, and he had prepared everything perfectly. "Would you like to play something?" Jake asked. "Just so we can hear how your violin sounds." "In here." Katie opened her violin case and took out her instrument. Jake noticed that it was not expensive or fancy, but it was well cared for and obviously loved. She tuned it quickly and played a simple melody. The sound that filled the studio was incredible. The room's acoustics made Katie's violin sound richer and more powerful than it had on the street. Jake and Alex looked at each other with amazement. "It sounds beautiful," Alex said. "The room really brings out the warmth in your tone," Katie smiled. It was the first time Jake had seen her truly relaxed since she arrived. "It does sound different in here. More ... full." Jake had prepared for this session carefully. He had chosen a song that he thought would work well with Katie's style. It was not too complicated, but it had room for creativity. "I have an idea," Jake said. "What if we try working with the Daft Punk song that made you famous, but we create our own version?" Katie looked uncertain. "I have played that song so many times. I am not sure there is anything new I can do with it." Jake sat down at his keyboard. "What if we add some electronic elements, but keep your violin as the main focus? We could create something that honors the original, but is completely yours." He played a simple electronic beat, much slower and more emotional than the original Daft Punk version. Katie listened carefully, her head moving slightly with the rhythm. "That is interesting," she said. "It feels more ... personal." Katie raised her violin and began to play along with Jake's beat. At first, she played the familiar melody from her street performance. But as she got comfortable with the new rhythm, she started to add her own variations. Alex was recording everything, and Jake could see the excitement in his eyes. What they were hearing was magical. Katie's violin was singing over the electronic beat in a way that neither of them had expected. "Try this," Jake said, adding another layer of sound to the background. "What if we make it build up slowly?" Katie nodded and began to play with more intensity. Her bow moved faster across the strings, and the emotion in her playing grew stronger. Jake added more electronic elements, but he was careful to keep them subtle. This was Katie's song now. They worked for 3 hours straight. Katie was a fast learner and full of ideas. She suggested changes to the beat, asked for different sounds, and even tried singing along with her violin playing. Jake was impressed by her musical instincts and her willingness to experiment. "Let us take a break," Alex suggested. "I want to play back what we have recorded." They sat in the studio's small lounge area and listened to their work. Katie's eyes were closed as she heard herself playing through the studio speakers. When the song ended, she opened her eyes with tears in them. "I have never heard myself sound like that," she said quietly. Jake knew they had created something special. "This is just the beginning. Imagine what we could do with more time." The next 2 days were filled with more recording sessions. They worked on 3 different songs, each one showcasing a different side of Katie's talent. One was energetic and danceable. Another was slow and emotional. And the third combined classical music with modern beats. Katie's confidence grew with each session. She started suggesting ideas for arrangements and even wrote some original melodies. Jake could see that she was beginning to trust him and believe in their collaboration. On her last day in Los Angeles, Katie and Jake sat in his office, listening to rough mixes of their recordings. The music was raw and unfinished, but it was full of potential. "What happens next?" Katie asked. Jake had been thinking about this question for days. "That depends on what you want to happen. We could finish these songs and release them online. We could make a full album, or we could just keep experimenting and see where the music takes us." Katie was quiet for a long time. Jake could see that she was struggling with a big decision. "I need to ask you something," she finally said. "If we do this, if we really work together, will you promise me that we can use the music to help people? Not just make money, but actually make a difference?" Jake smiled. "Katie, that is exactly what I was hoping you would say. Yes, I promise. We will create music that matters." Katie extended her hand to shake his. "Then let us do this. Let us make something beautiful together." As they shook hands, Jake knew that his life was about to change completely. Dot had found not just a talented musician, but a true partner who shared his vision for what music could be. 6 months after Katie returned to Seattle, everything had changed. The song they had created together, which they called Electric Strings, was released online and became an instant hit. Within 2 weeks, it had over 10 million streams. Music. Blogs were calling it revolutionary. Radio stations across the country were adding it to their playlists. Katie moved to Los Angeles permanently, finishing her music therapy degree through online classes. Jake had found her a small apartment near his studio so she could focus on her music while still pursuing her education. Her younger brother Danny came to visit often, and Katie made sure he felt welcome in her new life. The success of Electric Strings had attracted attention from major record labels. But Katie and Jake decided to stay independent. They wanted to maintain creative control over their music and ensure they could use their success to help others. "We have something special here," Jake told Katie one morning as they reviewed offers from 3 different record companies. "Why would we give that up to make someone else rich?" Katie agreed completely. "Besides, being independent means we can donate more money to music therapy programs." They had already started the Katie Williams Foundation, which provided free music therapy sessions to children in hospitals and elderly people in nursing homes. Every month, Katie visited these places personally, playing her violin and teaching others how music could heal. Their second song, Midnight Symphony, was even more successful than the first. It reached #1 on several music charts and was featured in a popular movie soundtrack. Katie's unique style of mixing classical violin with electronic music had created an entirely new genre that other musicians were starting to copy. But success brought new challenges. Katie was invited to perform at music festivals and award shows, which was exciting but also scary for someone who had started as a street performer. "I do not know if I am ready for all this attention," Katie told Jake as they prepared for her first major television appearance. Jake understood her nervousness. "Remember why we started doing this? We wanted to reach people with music that could help them. That has not changed, even if the stages are bigger now." Katie's television performance was watched by over 20 million people. She played Electric Strings with a full orchestra, and the combination of her violin with classical instruments created something beautiful and powerful. The audience gave her a standing ovation that lasted for 3 minutes. After the show, Katie's phone was flooded with messages from fans around the world. People wrote to tell her how her music had helped them through difficult times. Some said her songs helped them study better. Others said the music helped them sleep or feel less anxious. One message particularly touched Katie's heart. It was. From a teenage girl named Lisa who had been in the hospital for months with a serious illness. Lisa wrote that she listened to Katie's music every day and that it gave her hope and strength to keep fighting. Katie showed the message to Jake. "This is why we do this," she said with tears in her eyes. "This makes everything worth it." Jake arranged for Katie to visit Lisa in the hospital. Katie spent an entire afternoon playing music for Lisa and the other children in the cancer ward. She taught them simple songs they could play together and showed them how music could be a form of therapy. The hospital visit inspired Katie and Jake to create their most ambitious project yet. They decided to make an entire album specifically designed for healing and therapy. Each song would be created to help with different emotional needs. Some songs would be energizing, others would be calming, and some would be designed to help people process grief or trauma. They worked with music therapists and psychologists to understand how different sounds and rhythms affected the brain. Katie learned about the science behind music therapy and incorporated these principles into her compositions. The album, called Healing Frequencies, took 8 months to complete. It featured 12 songs, each one carefully crafted to serve a specific therapeutic purpose. Katie played violin on every track, but they also included other instruments like piano, guitar, and even nature sounds. When Healing Frequencies was released, it immediately became #1 on the wellness and meditation charts. Hospitals began using the songs in their therapy programs, and schools started playing the music to help students focus and reduce stress. Katie's friend Ryan Scott, whom she had met during her early days in Los Angeles, joined their team as a permanent guitarist. Ryan brought his own creative ideas and helped Katie feel more confident performing on big stages. The success of the Healing album led to Katie being invited to perform at the largest music festival in the country. The festival typically featured rock bands and pop stars, so Katie's classically electronic fusion was something completely different for the audience. The night of her festival performance, Katie stood backstage feeling nervous but excited. Jake and Alex were with her, along with Ryan and the small orchestra they had hired for the show. "Are you ready for this?" Jake asked. Katie looked out at the crowd of over 100,000 people. A year ago, she had been playing for a few dozen people on the streets of Seattle. Now she was about to perform for one of the largest audiences in music festival history. "I am ready," she said with confidence. Katie's festival performance was the highlight of the entire event. She opened with Electric Strings, which got the massive crowd dancing and cheering. Then she played some quieter songs that had the audience swaying with their phone lights in the air. She ended her set with a brand new song she had written specifically for this moment, a piece that celebrated the power of music to bring people together. The performance was broadcast live around the world and viewed by over 50 million people. By the next morning, Katie's music was being played in countries she had never even visited. But what made Katie happiest was not the fame or the money. It was the thousands of messages she received from people saying her music had changed their lives. Teachers wrote to say her songs helped their students learn better. Doctors reported that patients recovered faster when listening to her Healing album. Parents thanked her for creating music that brought their families together. 6 months later, Katie stood on the same street corner in Seattle where Jake had first found her. She was not performing this time, but visiting to remember where her journey had started. The music store owner, who had helped Jake find her, came out to say hello. "Look at you now," he said with a proud smile. "From street performer to international star." Katie laughed. "I am still the same person. I just have a bigger audience now." And that was the truth. Katie had achieved everything she had dreamed of and more, but she had never forgotten her original goal of using music to help people heal and feel better. Her story proved that sometimes getting lucky really meant being prepared when the right opportunity came along.